Welcome to a special episode of Screenshots. And we know that there are a lot of movies out there, and we here at Screenshots like a lot of them, and not just the new releases. So we'd like to take this opportunity to talk about some older movies that we liked. We've got some good movies on tap here, so stick around. First up, we have Ben Barker with his review of Babel.
Hi everyone, I'm Ben Barker, your familiar co-host on Screenshots. My movie review for this week is a recent DVD release of a 2006 movie titled Babel, directed by Alejandro Gonzalez Inarritu and starring Brad Pitt, Cate Blanchett, and Mohamed Aksem. This is a fabulous film entwining multiple stories through one small connection, a rifle. Now, that rifle doesn't necessarily have a prominent role in each of the stories, but is used as a link to bring forth 4 different cultural families across the world. By bringing these different families and their cultures out, we as an audience can begin to see how very much alike we are when we face tragedy and hardship. I won't go into detail of how exactly the rifle ties in with each story, but I would like to point out how the rifle is symbolic of our cross-cultural connection as human beings. As a husband and wife are traveling in Morocco with hopes to solve some of their apparent relationship issues, the woman is unexpectedly shot in the shoulder in a foreign country, and with political issues standing in the way of medical aid from the American embassy, who jumps to the assumption of terrorist involvement, the couple must endure the situation alone with only the help of one friendly native. Through the story, we can see the hardships of an American couple who must confront an emergency situation to survive. At the same time, we are witness to another family from Morocco. This is a family who lives a seemingly average Moroccan life until a rifle is sold to them to protect their herd. When the 2 young boys get carried away with a rifle and one ends up shooting the American woman, they, along with the rest of their family, are thrown into a mess with the law and are torn apart. Our third story follows a Mexican nanny who takes care of the American couple's children. While this woman has been a loyal and dedicated nanny and living in the States for several years, she takes the children to Mexico for her son's wedding, as the American parents are held up in Morocco because of the shooting. Coming back through the border from Mexico to return with the children, the nanny faces trouble with the law, and a whole series of hardships unfold for her as well. Lastly, we follow a Japanese girl who struggles with the difficulties of her mother's recent suicide, a tough relationship with her grieving father, social rejection, and the frustrations of her own disability. Trying desperately to be accepted and to express herself physically, she confronts a police detective who is inquiring about the rifle her father sold, which has been linked with an attempted murder, the one of the American woman in Morocco. This Japanese girl struggles to connect with the officer, who appears to be the only person who begins to understand her hardships. Okay, so now that I've given you the less than brief synopsis of the film, I'd just like to tell you a little bit about how I felt about it. I was pleasantly surprised by the variety of stories, all of which were connected to one another. Each story had its own fascinating twist, and I felt I could really understand the difficulties of each family. I don't often run into films like this because, in my opinion, this is a very hard type of film to pull off. It's difficult to keep an audience captivated and also able to follow each story and make the necessary connections along the way. It can be difficult to follow so many different threads in a mere 2.5 hours, but when a director can pull this off with his audience, it can be a really impressive work. To be emotionally touched by each of the different stories, in my opinion, is a job well done by the director and the actors. This film did that for me, and I will say that this is one of the better films I've seen in a long time. Even though it took me, half of the film to understand how each of the stories was connected, I came to realize how, even through a very small connection, a number of different cultural families can be similar. So to rate this film simply for its, sheer emotional value, I would honestly have to give this a solid 10 out of 10. That's saying a lot, I know, but I'm really impressed with this film. If you enjoy something more than a shoot-'em-up film or a Hollywood CGI film, this is a great one to go with. That's my review of Babel, and now I'm going to let you take it from here, Joey.
Thanks, Ben. Next up, we have a particularly handsome, mustachioed gentleman reviewing American Psycho. Based on Bret Easton Ellis's 1991 novel of the same name, American Psycho is set in the mid-1980s and follows young New York investment banker Patrick Bateman. Now, Bateman is the embodiment of the 80s New York yuppie, concerned only with his new hairdo, his new business card, and getting into the trendy new restaurant. And he kills people. Directed by Mary Herron, whose name I'm sure you don't recognize, American Psycho may well be the most underrated film I've ever seen. The film made a paltry $15 million at the domestic box office when it was released in the year 2000 and received no attention come award season. The problem that marketing executives ultimately faced was actually one of the film's greatest strengths. The film breaks all boundaries of genre. I found my personal copy of American Psycho in the horror section of a Best Buy, but it is most decidedly not a horror film, despite what the title may suggest. In all honesty, the movie is hilarious. It's one of the sharpest satires I've ever watched, and once you get over the shock of what you're watching, the film is both hysterical and poignant. American Psycho stars the man who would be Batman, Christian Bale, in his first adult starring role. The fact that Bale was not nominated for any major film awards for his performance is something that will be looked upon as one of the biggest oversights in film history when all is said and done. His performance is brilliant and full of nuance, and to top it off, Bale has surprising comedic talent when he needs it. American Psycho is a movie that will make you think. I recommend watching it at least twice, because the first time you'll probably be too busy looking at your friends asking, "What the hell just happened?" to take it all in. It's a film that rewards repeat viewings like I've never experienced before, and is well worth the time. Because amongst the intelligent commentary on American culture in the 1980s, it's very entertaining. Now, the ending is certainly ambiguous and allows for a lot of interpretation, but still manages to tell a very interesting story. American Psycho isn't hard to find and is growing in popularity as more and more people discover it and become ready to accept a film that was simply ahead of its time 7 years ago. I rated the film a 9 out of 10 and is one that I think is very important to see if you care about film or just want to be entertained for 2 hours. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to go return some videotapes. Next, Travis Barassa reviews Quentin Tarantino's Jackie Brown.
With 2 acclaimed films and an Oscar under his belt, Quentin Tarantino was all over the Hollywood A-list. In 1997, he was ready to do it all again with his long-awaited Elmore Leonard adaptation, Jackie Brown. Sadly, critics and audiences weren't really ready to accept a character-driven crime comedy that invoked 70s blaxploitation and starred long-forgotten screen heroine Pam Grier. Now, after resurrecting John Travolta's career, Tarantino realized that he had the power to bring back any of his childhood heroes, so this time he chose Grier and her fellow 70s star Robert Forster. Now, both actors probably give the best performances of their careers and probably won't do any better later, but what else would you expect from 2 B-stars who are given a chance to interpret the most sought-after dialogue writer in Hollywood? Now, the story follows airline stewardess Jackie Brown as she gets caught smuggling money for her gunrunner boss, played by quote machine Sam Jackson. Jackie finds herself high and dry after serving a short prison term, but she finds solace in her bail bondsman, who's played by Forster. Now, some of the best chemistry that's in the film is really between Forster and Grier. They work great as middle-aged love interests, both who have been burned by a former relationship, and they're just ready to get together. Now, I already mentioned that Sammy J brings some great one-liners as Ordell Roby the gunrunner, but the movie features a ton of great co-stars like Bridget Fonda, Chris Tucker, Sid Haig, Michael Keaton, and a very minimalist role by Robert De Niro. Now, Bobby plays Louis Gara, an old thug who just gets out of the big house, and he spends most of the movie just grunting and half agreeing with Jackson's Roby character, which it's kind of a shame because we'll never really get to see how De Niro spits out some serious Tarantino dialogue. That could be a great matchup. And Michael Keaton's pretty funny as one of the cops who busts Jackie and later uses her to take down Ordell Roby. So don't expect a lot of blood and guts like in Reservoir Dogs or Pulp Fiction. This is a very character-driven film. There's no short vignettes and the action's very limited. The film's biggest problem is probably that it runs for over 2.5 hours, but there isn't much that really could be cut because every moment is well used to make you sympathize with Grier and her struggle as a lower-class black woman who's far beyond her prime. So rent this, or better yet, just buy the DVD because there's a ton of extras on it. And my favorite in the collection is all the Pam Grier and Robert Forster trailers on there from their 70s movies. You can watch every trailer for every movie they've ever done. There's Pam Grier as Foxy Brown and Robert Forster in some movie about alligators. But I gave this an 8 out of 10. I think it's Quentin's best, and it's way better than that Death Proof crap. So
like to watch the Maine Channel. I have a nice view from up here in the tree.
Who's that lady? Who's that lady? Beautiful lady, lady. Who's that lady? Lovely lady. Who's that lady? Real fine lady. Who's that lady?
Our next review is a review of Hotel Rwanda by Becca Doherty.
Hotel Rwanda, directed by Terry George, is a true story on the genocide in Rwanda. The genocide included the mass killings of hundreds of thousands of ethnic Tutsis and moderate Hutu sympathizers. This genocide was mostly carried out by two extremist Hutu militia groups during April 6th through mid-July 1994. At least 500,000 Tutsis and thousands of moderate Hutus died in this genocide. Some estimates put the death toll between 800,000 and 1 million. Hotel Rwanda focuses on Paul Ruzabagini, played by Don Cheadle, a hotel manager who is part of the Hutu tribe and is married to a Tutsi. Paul's family is threatened when the Hutu militia begin cleansing Rwanda of all Tutsis. He is forced to house his family in the hotel, which is home to Americans and other foreigners during their stay in Rwanda. Fearing the safety of friends and neighbors, Paul takes in more and more families, totaling over 1,000 in the 4-star hotel that was immune to military attacks based on its ties to other foreign countries. The movie captures the burden of one man to save thousands when no foreign armies would come to their aid. Now, what do I think of it? I rate this movie 10 out of 10 stars, mostly for its historical significance. Hotel Rwanda addresses the neglect of a country experiencing mass murder of an entire ethnic group. Featured in all forms of media, the Rwandan genocide was virtually ignored by the world, while hundreds of thousands of innocent lives were lost. It is disappointing to know that it takes an entertaining movie to address such horrors that have occurred in history, to those who ignored it in the first place. With a solid cast and convincing scenarios, Hotel Rwanda puts the audience in the shoes of Paul and the minds of fearful Tutsis. I suggest purchasing Hotel Rwanda, not for its violence, but for its humbling and educational experience.
Next up, we have Dave Nickerson with his review of Guy Ritchie's Snatch.
The movie Snatch is by far the best movie ever on my list. Brad Pitt is promoted as a main character just because he's a big name, but the entire cast, if they weren't popular back in 2000 when the movie premiered, they're big time now. Benicio del Toro, Dennis Farina, Jason Statham, Vinnie Jones, and of course director Guy Ritchie, with a little appearance on the soundtrack of his wife Madonna. Won't you be my lucky star? Won't you shine on me wherever you are? Won't you be? Movie has it all. Emotion, action, comedy. I'm using my fingers a lot. Death, dogs, dags, milk, guns, people who won't die, pig farms, feed him to the pigs, Harold, tea, and of course, the Steinstein framed furniture with a Scottish cushion and a matching side-by coverage. Stupid person appearing blue bus. Anyway, the plot has it all. It's incredibly entertaining, and with the way it's put together, there are no boring parts at all. Mini stories created, and It's like an episode of Seinfeld in that the mini-plots come together at the end for a hell of a finale. Watch out for Tyrone. He's the best character ever. Hilarious, but not the best getaway driver. When things are in reverse, Tyrone, things come from behind you. Anyway, hilarious movie, great watch, best acting I've ever seen, Brad Pitt's best performance ever, and I don't want to give any more away, just go rent it right now, or if you're Becca Doherty, download it, legally of course. And if you like it, check out the earlier film by Guy Ritchie, Lock, Stock, 2 Smoking Barrels, almost the same cast, great British humor, great plot again, awesome movie, Snatch, 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 go rent Snatch, go buy Snatch. You're gonna be blown away. It's gonna blow you away. Blow. Snatch.
Next up, we're going to give you another shot of Travis with his review of The King of Comedy.
The King of Comedy was Martin Scorsese's first foray into feature-length comedy. It's got a lot of laughs, but it's still what you expect from the maker of Taxi Driver and Raging Bull. It follows the story of Rupert Pupkin, a wannabe stand-up comedian who obsesses over celebrity and still lives with his mother. Now, Rupert's favorite comic is Jerry Langford. He's the host of a late-night program like Conan or Leno. And Rupert haunts the show on a nightly basis. He's always standing outside and waiting for Jerry to come out. We enter Rupert's mind and watch his desires play out. And in his fantasies, Rupert is Jerry's friend, and sometimes he co-hosts the program with him. Other times he's Jerry's closest confidant and reassurance man, but back in the real world, Rupert's desires take over, and he takes Jerry hostage in hopes of befriending him. That's Rupert behind me. If you can't tell, that's actually Robert De Niro with a mustache. Now, Robert De Niro plays Rupert as a pathetic hack without an original idea in his head, so we can laugh at how sad Rupert's life is. I mean, just listen to his name, it's Rupert Pupkin. And we can cringe while he talks to himself in a mock television set like that. And he's played a lot of psychological roles, De Niro. He's played Vietnam vets, gangsters, a troubled athlete, and he's even played send-ups of his classic roles. But Rupert Pupkin is by far the funniest, scariest, and most pathetic character De Niro has introduced to us. He's an acting machine. He can play dumb, delighted, and dangerous all in the same frame. So go rent The King of Comedy. You got De Niro, Jerry Lewis as Jerry Langford, and an almost likable Sandra Bernhardt as Rupert's partner in crime. So check it out.
Coming up next, we have Tim Bissell with his review of the Trailer Park Boys, the movie.
If you're like me and have a penchant for movies rife with uniquely foul language, hilarious criminal situations, frequent drug references, and little to no redeeming social value, then you will most certainly love Trailer Park Boys, the movie. Now, based on the long-running Canadian television show of the same name, Trailer Park Boys is the demented creation of director Mike Clattenburg. Based in the fictional Sunnyvale Trailer Park in Nova Scotia, the show and movie follow the immature misfortunes of 2 repeat offenders, the alcoholic, good-looking, tough guy Julian and the high school dropout stoner Ricky. Now, shot in the mockumentary style, made popular by films like Spinal Tap, the beauty of this format is that the opportunity for hilarious monologues arise quite frequently. And it's through these monologues that Ricky, played by Clattenburg's co-writer for the film, Rob Wells, emerges as the true star of this film. Released in 2006, the film only played in Canadian theaters, but the DVD is available online at Amazon.com and for rental through Netflix. Now, the plot of the movie, which is completely removed from the plot of the TV show to allow new viewers to completely engage, it starts off with Ricky and Julian planning an ATM heist with their best friend and voice of reason, the ever-lovable Bubbles. Now, as can be expected, the robbery is foiled by a major screw-up on Ricky's behalf, and that leads to a police chase and another incarceration for Ricky and Julian. Now, the boys are in prison for a while, and then they are released when head prison guard Donnie kicks them out, claiming the jail is overcrowded. In a hilarious scene, Ricky fights to stay in jail so he can keep playing street hockey with his friends, and he claims he has every right to serve his time, but he's ultimately set free with Julian. Now, upon their return to the trailer park, the boys are confronted by park supervisor Jim Leahy and his shirtless assistant/life partner Randy. The feud between the boys and Leahy and Randy is well documented in the show, and it was great to see it carried into the movie. Now, back at the park, Ricky seeks to rekindle his on-again, off-again relationship with the mother of his child, Lucy, and to pull off the Big Dirty, which he learned in prison is the one perfect heist that will make him enough money to retire so that he'll never have to go back to jail again. Things with Lucy don't go very well at first, but things rarely go well for Ricky anyways. Julian, whose post-prison goals were purposefully less ambitious, recruits Ricky to help him with his plan to steal small, untraceable amounts of change from parking meters. Ricky first scoffs at the plan, but is eventually swayed by Julian, Bubbles, and the never-do-well neighborhood scapegoats Corey and Trevor. As the boys go about trying to steal change from parking meters, Julian sees the opportunity for the Big Dirty that Ricky was talking about earlier. I don't want to give away too much, but the climactic scene that is the big robbery attempt is one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my entire life. Now, while the plot itself is wonderfully written and provides many hilarious situations, the real beauty of this film lies in the richness and depth of the characters. And it's apparent that the majority of the actors in this film are playing the very same people they've been playing for 5 years on the TV show, and they're very comfortable with these characters. Although all the characters are perfectly cast, Barry Dunn, who plays Ricky's fraudulently wheelchair-bound and chronically drunk father, and John Dunsworth, who brings such a realistic inebriation to the character of Jim Leahy that you can actually smell the alcohol in his breath, stand out as two of the strongest performances in the film. Now, I'd give this film a 10 out of 10 for its originality, its rich and lovable characters, and the many Rush references throughout the film. I highly suggest checking this one out, so grab a bag of jalapeno chips, rum and coke, and enjoy the hilarious misfortunes of the Trailer Park Boys.
Hey, Tim, I think you said jalapeno wrong. You said jalapeno, not jalapeno. It's jalapeno.
That's how Ricky says it, though.
You know who John Wayne is, right?
I think I've heard of him.
One of his films is True Grit. He plays a drunken, one-eyed marshal. Back then, when I thought of people with eye patches, I thought they were pirates, but I was wrong. They only wear eye patches because they're missing an eye. I'm always at war with myself. You know, not just because of, depression, but because of my past. Despite the way I look on the outside, on the inside, I'm actually very sensitive. No one hurts my mother.
And nobody's hurting your mother, are they?
No, I mean, no one hurts my mother and gets away with it.
I know. Okay.
Because if you look in the eyes, you'll see a kid that's trying to be what he'll never be. I ride around the town a lot when I'm feeling bored. Good way to get a tan. You ever had a boyfriend?
Nope.
Yeah, I've never had a girlfriend. I've usually walked to school like a lonely soul. There's one thing you cannot stop. It's a guy who's in love. I'd like to be a superhero. Some of the benefits of being a superhero would be you get to save people who are innocent and fight those who are guilty, while sometimes you win the heart of a damsel that you rescued. Unfortunately, I've never been the savior of a damsel, though I hope someday I will be.
Save rock and roll for everyone. Save rock and roll.
I'm not black, not white, not foreign, just different in the mind.
Next, we have Ben Lankhorst with his review of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is an epic classic that really grabs the crazy lobe of your brain. In this 1975 drama, which was written by Ken Kesey, but produced by Milos Forman, it asks the question, is the main character, Randall Patrick McMurphy, crazy? And in turn, asks you to check yourself for crazy tendencies. The main character, R.P. McMurphy, who was played by the one and only Jack Nicholson, he is sent to a mental hospital after he was in jail. And he was in jail and they could not handle his antics anymore. Some would say that his actions in prison was a part of a secret agenda to get out of his work detail in jail. While in the mental hospital, he becomes friends and foes with a number of different characters. Among his friends are screenplay big shots like Danny DeVito, who plays Martini, Christopher Lloyd, who plays Tabor, and Vincent Schiavelli as Fredrickson. His best friend, at the end, ends up being Will Sampson, better known as Chief. Throughout the movie, R.P. McMurphy corrupts the clinically insane with gambling, card tricks, basketball, women, and even booze. He even devised a plan to hijack a bus and a charter boat to take the loonies fishing. It's hilarious. His arch nemesis, Nurse Ratchet, who was played by Louise Fletcher, is a constant thorn in his side. They are always at each other's throats about the rules and regulations of the Psycho Ward. It's a classic and a must-see, with an ending that will blow your head off. It's filled with funny one-liners, sad situations, and exciting subplots. That makes it an excellent watch. Rent it, buy it, watch it, see it, and see if you're crazy. Crazy like a loony. Crazy loony.
That's going to wrap up this week's episode of Screenshots. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we hope you go and check out some of the movies that we reviewed for you today. Until next time, don't just stare at it, eat it. Okay.